How's it going, everyone? Daniel Armstrong here, and this is my power sports service shop, A-Tech Racing Performance. Today, we're going to be getting this bike ready for a customer who's going to be taking it on a trip out of state. It's a 2011 Harley-Davidson Rogue Glide Custom. It's honestly a beautiful bike. We've done a lot of work on this one too. Rebuilt the motor, changed the entire ECM on it, done suspension work. This one's definitely rowdy. In my shop, everything I do is time-based. So let's pull out a stopwatch, go ahead and get this thing started, and let's get to work. First things first, let's get these saddlebags unlocked so we can open them up. We need to disconnect the wiring from the internal speakers, and we need to loosen the quarter-turn Zeus fasteners in order to disconnect these and remove them from the bike. Once I got these disconnected, I pull them off the bike and put them aside for later. Next, it's time to move on and remove the exhaust. First, I loosen the 9/16 muffler clamp. Then I move to the back and focus on the 1/2-inch exhaust hanger bolts. Once I got those pulled off the bike, I gently wiggled the muffler back and forth and just slide it off. Alright, next we're moving on to the rear axle. First thing we gotta do is remove this safety clip. I do this using a big flathead screwdriver. Next, I gotta remove this lower shock bolt. It's an aftermarket air ride system. It doesn't have enough clearance for me to get my socket onto the axle nut. Alright, now that we got that broken loose, let's put it aside and loosen the rear axle nut. Alright, now that that's loose, let's go ahead and put it aside. And let's go ahead and loosen our dry belt adjustment plate. Gonna rotate this clockwise. This is gonna take the tension off of the actual dry belt. Moving on to the other side. Just like before, gonna loosen this 9/16 muffler clamp. Then I'm gonna move up to the 1/2-inch exhaust hanger bolts and get those taken off. Once I got all the bolts loosened up and removed, I gently wiggled the exhaust until I can slide it off. Then I just put it aside. Time to remove this rear axle. I'm using a little rubber dead blow just to help make my life a little easier. Moving back over to the right side of the bike, I'm going to remove this rear caliper from its hanger and just set it aside. This will allow us to remove the rear wheel. Got this caliper loose now. I'm just going to lay it on top of the saddlebag rail. It's very important that you don't hang the caliper from the brake line itself. Moving on to finish removing this rear wheel from the bike. One thing to note when removing this wheel is that wheel spacer that fell into the belt right there. Definitely don't want to lose that. Put that aside for later. Now I'm going to remove the dry belt pulley and just set this aside. Let's head over to the tire changer. First thing I do, remove the valve stem and let all the air out of the tire. After that, I move to the side of the machine and start using it to break the bead on the tire. Once I got the wheel secured onto the machine, I use this tire slime to lubricate the entire wheel. This helps with pulling the tire off. It works so much better than soapy water. Now that I got that tire removed, the next thing I like to do is grab that tire slime and lubricate the whole inside of the wheel. This helps with installing the tire and getting it beaded. Next, I check the rotation of the tire to make sure I'm going to be mounting it properly. For all you small shop owners out there, or anyone that's busting tires out in the garage like me, this strong arm attachment is an absolute lifesaver, especially on these bigger Harley tires. You don't need an extra set of hands anymore. Now that I got this tire fully installed, I gotta align the balancing dot on the tire with the valve stem itself on the wheel. This helps with final balancing. Gotta remove any old wheel weights as well. Now that I got the tire aired up and beaded, it's time to move on to the balancer. This machine tells me where I need to add weight to the tire, along with how much. That way we can balance it out so it doesn't have any vibration going down the road. Once I know how much weight I need to add and where to add it, I use stick-on lead weights to achieve this. Now that that's all balanced and ready to go, let's go ahead and install this cush drive again and get this wheel put back onto the bike. Now that I got this wheel back in position, it's time to grab that wheel spacer I dropped earlier and clean off all the excess grease. After putting the wheel spacer where it needs to go, I'm going to clean off all the used grease on this drive axle. And before installing it, I'm going to make sure I put some fresh grease on it as well. Sometimes the grease is enough, other times I like to use my dead blow to help me get this axle put back in. Moving back over to the right side of the bike, going to grab this drive belt adjustment plate and get it onto the axle. Then I'm going to grab some red Loctite, put a couple little dabs, and throw that axle nut on as well. Right here, you can see me adjust the drive belt tension using those tensioner plates on the axle. Now that the axle nut is installed, time to grab a torque wrench and do final torque. Let's get this caliper put back into place. A couple drops of red Loctite on these bolts just to keep them from vibrating out. You don't want to lose your back brakes on this guy. forget, gotta put on our safety clip. Time to reinstall that rear bolt that we took from the lower shock earlier. Once we got the exhaust put back onto the bike, we'll go ahead and tighten up the muffler clamp along with the exhaust hangers, and then move to the other side of the bike and do the exact same. Getting into the home stretch of this tire change. Time to install these saddlebags. Once she's locked up and secured, give her a little shake. Let's move on to the other side. Once everything's secured, I like to give it a little shake and check to make sure that everything looks even. Let's take a look at our timer. Not bad. Let's keep going. Now that that's done, I'm going to move on to checking to see if there's any codes inside of the bike. If you want to do this with your bike, it's really easy. You press and hold the select button for your speedometer. While you're holding it, you turn on your ignition. It's going to cycle and it should show diag inside of your speedometer. In order to go through all the functions, you're going to go ahead and press that selector button. In order to go into certain functions, you're going to press and hold the selector button. So for example, the P on here is representing the ECM, and there wasn't any codes on that. Moving on to the next one, which is an S, that's actually your turn signal system. There was a couple codes on this. This particular bike has LEDs on it, but doesn't have any resistors. So it constantly throws that code. We're going to go ahead and ignore it. You go forward, the SP stands for speedometer. There's no codes on there. The T stands for tachometer. And the code that you're seeing on there is the ABS light that's flashing. It's a normal thing. We'll get into that in a later video. Moving on to removing the spark plugs. I'm doing this so I can do a compression diagnostic test. Using this Motion Pro compression test kit, I'm going to measure the compression in each cylinder just to see where it's at. We got good compression, even with the tire battery. Let's move on to the front cylinder. Just like before, let's go ahead and get this kit installed, get our gauge installed, get up to the handlebar, and crank her over. Uh-oh. Hey everyone, hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe to my channel. Go ahead and leave me a like on this video, hit the bell icon for notifications, and leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys are working on or what you'd like to see next. All right, let's get back into the video. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on with this Road Glide. All right, so the bike didn't want to crank over even though it was turned on. So the first thing I did was took the seat off and got the battery exposed so I can at least attach my deep cell battery charger to it. Next place I checked was the fuse box on the left side of the bike. Everything looked fine there. Moving on to the key fob of the bike. I've had problems with these in the past when the batteries go low and it just doesn't pick up the sensor to let the bike turn over. Let's put in a fresh battery and see what happens. All right, success. And on top of that, we got a strong motor as well, 170 PSI. Let's go ahead and check the compression on the back cylinder again, and at the same time, I'm going to do a voltage drop test, just to see how tired this battery is, and to see how much the voltage is dropping when I hit the start button. Once I get past all that, it's time to install these spark plugs and continue on our job. Alright, let's see if this thing fires up. Next, I'm going to remove the speedometer and tachometer cluster. I'm doing this so I can gain access to the top nut on the triple tree. Now that I got access to that, I'm going to use my digital snap-on torque wrench to set the end play for the neck bearings. If you are doing this at home, make sure that you refer to your service manual. These bigger bikes have a fall-away test that you gotta do, and a lot of people tend to over-tighten these nuts. Alright, home stretch. Let's get this thing put back together and get it off the lift and go take it for a test ride. That's going to do it for this service. Let's see just how long this took today. 2.6 hours. Not bad. Just want to say thank you all for watching my video. Until next time, everyone, stay safe out there.